This is a CJSR podcast.
Volunteer-powered,
Listener-supported,
campus and community
Radio.
podcast.
Podcast.
Radio and podcast.
And it's just it blew my mind. And to this day, 35 years later, I still remember that exact moment of how I felt when the first time I had a burger. And I just think it's the universal food. It's funny when people say that we're the best burger. I would never say that because it's very subjective of what the best burger is.
Hi, my name is Maryam Shaheed, and you're listening to That's Food. That's Food is a podcast from CJSR, Edmonton's campus and community radio station, handmade with love by University of Alberta students, telling the backstory to food in Edmonton, one meal at a time. Burgers are one of the most popular foods in the world. It is served everywhere from McDonald's to even high-end restaurants. However, not all burgers are created equal, and who doesn't want to find the best burger in town? So I've tried to find where the best burger joints in Edmonton are, and I came across this article from bigeventstravel.com on the 7 best burgers in Edmonton, and saw Jack's Burger Shack on the list. I personally love their burgers. They have such a fun mix of flavors on the menu, and their atmosphere is really cozy and welcoming. In this episode, I spoke with Tu Lee, the co-owner of Jack's Burger Shack, to find out more about their burgers and his story. Where does the name come from then?
Jack is my nephew, so the other owner is my brother. Jack is his oldest son.
So why burgers and shakes?
It's funny, right? Because we're a family of immigrants, and it's it's some of our earliest food memories, and it's stuff that we love and that we assume that people would love too. And when we came to this country, there wasn't a lot of opportunities for people who couldn't speak English and things like that. So my parents, they worked in whatever jobs they could get, meaning like restaurants, like dishwashers and things like that. And one of my first food memories as a young boy was going to pick up my mom from work, and she would save her staff meals all the time for us. Like she worked at she was like a dishwasher and a line cook at like a pretty high end restaurant, but she would always save her family meals for us. And one of the things that she saved for us was like a bacon cheeseburger, and we're Vietnamese, so we were having rice and stewed meats and things like that all the time. So that was something that I'd never had before, and it just it blew my mind. And to this day, 35 years later, I still remember that exact moment of how I felt when the first time I had a burger. And I just think it's the universal food. It's funny when people say that we're the best burger. I would never say that because it's very subjective of what the best burger is. So we make the burger how we would eat it. And in all honesty, like my brother and I, we've traveled a lot, and we go out to eat quite a bit. And then if there's a burger on the menu, we're going to eat it, even though that we own a burger restaurant. So it was just our love for that food. It was our love for that early food memory that we had.
And you have a variety of combinations on your menu. Do you come up with these combinations? Yeah,
the menu is kind of my department. It was just things that I thought would work. There's 9 burgers on the menu, so it's the basics of it's the same. Fresh baked bun, freshly ground beef, and then the vegetables in the sauce, and then you add other things to it. But the star is always the beef and the bun, right? So we never want to. People say sometimes our burgers are crazy or the creations are out of this world, but I don't really think so. I think everything that we've made still accentuates the burger, but it accentuates the beef, but it just gives you kind of a different almost perspective of how it should taste.
Do you know your bestseller?
The best-selling burger is called the barbecue crunch. So it has our standard burger on there, lettuce, onion, tomato, our house burger sauce, and then we top it with cheese, bacon, potato chips, and barbecue sauce.
Which one's your personal favorite?
Whenever I have a burger, I just have a cheeseburger. So I just have our standard with cheese on it. It's really, really simple. And when people come here for the first time and, they're either passing through and they want a burger, or they've heard about us, but they haven't been here before, that's what I always suggest. Just have our standard burger, throw a piece of cheese on it if you like cheese, and you kind of get your feet wet, kind of understand what we do.
Are there any new flavor combinations you want to experiment with?
We've been working on we call it a secret menu. A few things. I'm not ready to put it onto our menu yet because 8 years and we've kept the same kind of 9 burgers, and I don't know if I'm ready to put a new one on, but we've had a few things. This week we did a Juicy Lucy, which is like the official burger of Minnesota, and it's a burger stuffed with American cheese in the middle. And I've been working on that actually for a couple of years now, but and it's been on the secret menu if you ask for it. But I don't want to serve it until we've perfected it, till we know it's going to sell, we know that we can execute it in a rush, things like that. There's a lot of factors to it.
Did you learn cooking from someone? Was it a passion?
I've learned cooking from my mom, essentially. Traditional Vietnamese family. She'd work and then come home and cook, and I was a mama's boy, and my brother was like a daddy's boy. So I learned to cook with her, but then the basics. But then when I started working in bars and restaurants and things like that, I never worked in the kitchen. I worked in the front, but it was always something that I was interested in, and I just watched and I helped out and I learned from like chefs and things like that. And as we opened the restaurant, I started to do more career development, like going to cooking classes in schools all over the world and things like that to kind of hone our skills and to make sure that we're serving a humble burger, but we're making sure that everything is done correctly. So yeah, it was like to get back to it, it's probably like a passion thing of mine, but deeply rooted. It was my mom that taught me how to cook.
What compelled you to start a food business?
I've always worked in a restaurant. I mean, I went to university and I have a degree in education, but I always worked in a restaurant or a bar when I was in university. And when I graduated, I found that there was more opportunities for me in that industry over teaching. So I was working for other people and had a pretty successful career working for other people. And then I figured, why not do this for myself? So,
has it been different from what you've imagined?
I mean, it's a lot when you work for someone else and you're working with their money and their budget and things like that. It is a little different. But when you're spending your own money and putting up your own lines of credit and not getting a paycheck and working these thankless hours, it's a little different than having someone sign your paycheck every 2 weeks.
What difficulties did you face and how did you overcome them? Can you think of some specific ones?
Well, the first Jack's Burger Shack was opened in Slave Lake in 2012, and there was a lot of difficulties there. We just didn't know the demographic well enough, and in all honesty, I spent 20 years in this industry from when I graduated university, and there's a lot of challenges I didn't foresee, like knowing the demographic, knowing your supply chain when you're in a small town like that, and getting along with the cliques and breaking through to the people that sometimes aren't willing to try something new. So that, and there was a lot of stress. Spend a whole life working and you put all your life savings towards something, and to see it not work out is always it's a little scary. And we also, I was in Vancouver when my brother decided that we should do this project in Slave Lake. So I moved from a loft and a penthouse in Vancouver, where my employer was paying for that, to a trailer in the parking lot of the restaurant. So there's a lot of challenges personally and professionally when we did that.
So the one in Slave Lake is not currently open, right? Only
No.
The one in St. Albert?
Only in St. Albert right now. We closed that one up after a year and relocated to St. Albert to have a bigger pool of people that we could service, and it was the right move.
And is it because you were living there, or why did you choose that location specifically?
Which one, in St. Albert?
Yeah, the one in St. Albert.
When we decided to close the one in Slave Lake, I wasn't ready to give up on the idea yet. I think that we were convinced that it would work. I know it's insanity, right? Like trying to do the same thing that didn't work, trying to do the same thing over again. But we were convinced that we were just in the wrong market. So I immigrated to Edmonton in 1979, and I've lived here ever since, except for 5 years when I was working in Vancouver. So it was home. And so when we came back, we looked at a few different spaces. The one that we're at now, and then one on 124th Street before 124th Street is what it is today. So, and we just kind of went with our gut, which one we thought would be a better fit for our concept. And it just so happened the one here in St. Albert was smaller, so we had less of a risk, even though, we'd already spent our life savings. So we were we were going into this again just on credit alone. So it was a little smaller, so it was less of a risk. Not that big of a community like Edmonton. I always say Edmonton scares me a bit, even though like it's my home. Going into a big market like that after failing in a small market was was a little bit scary. So St. Albert, 60,000 people. It was a little more controlled. So that's pretty much why we chose it.
But you made it work because that location is not high traffic, right? That location is not considered really high traffic.
It's not considered high traffic, no. And when I saw it, and they consider this downtown St. Albert, and it's funny because only because probably City Hall is here, but I just envisioned that it could be a high traffic area, and still it's not a high traffic area yet, but people are starting to be more mindful of this area when it comes to food and shopping and things like that, because there are no chains or franchises down here. It is just mom and pop shops. So I think that we kind of had the vision that could happen, and it slowly but surely is happening. So
when was the point when you thought, wow, we really made it?
It started to, when we opened, we would have 3 people working, and our staff consisted of 3 or 4 people. Now it's about 22 people that work. The pandemic's a little different, we're at about 16. But once we figured like, hey, we can't keep up. We got to employ more people to do like these jobs that we were able to do ourselves before, when we could afford that. And that was kind of like the first step. And then people started to notice what we were doing. I mean, I never really dreamed that it would take off as much as it did for Jack's Burger Shack. I mean, I wanted to have a successful business and cater to the neighborhood and cater to the people that work around here and the people that live around here. But it kind of grew into something that, something bigger, people from Edmonton were coming, people from Northern Alberta, people from Calgary. We were on the Food Network, things like that. So it's it blew up. So it took a couple of years. It took a couple of years for sure.
And what do you think makes people come back?
If I knew that answer 100%, then I would have I'd have a winning recipe, right? But I think there's a lot of things. The food, I mean, we use fresh local products. So we know the farmers that raise the cows, the butcher that butchers it and grinds the meat for us. We know the baker. So it's all local stuff in this area. So people can kind of relate and they can kind of call Jack's theirs because like, oh yeah, like I've used that baker before, or I know that butcher, or they see our restaurant as like the neighborhood's restaurant or their restaurant. And when you come to the restaurant, it is just it's smaller, it's intimate. So we get to know the people that come in, and we know them by name, and we treat them like our guests, our family almost when they come here. So there's a combination of things of why we've been successful, knock on wood. And I wish I could just pinpoint 1 or 2 points, because then I would just recreate it all over the world. But we happen to have the right formula here for success, and so it's worked out.
And you recently won the cut competition to select tenants for the stadium yards.
Yeah.
Can you tell me more about that?
Sure. It was a competition they were gonna supply $125,000 for startup to build out whatever business that you decided, and it showed up on my social media feed or something like that. So I made a funny video to apply, not thinking anything of it, and we made it to the final, I think final 8, and then they wanted us to fill out a questionnaire, and I filled that out, and then we made it to the final, I think it was 5. And and then we had to pitch the idea in front of a crowd. And I'm lucky that I'm a restaurateur and a cook, but I have a degree in education, so I'm pretty confident speaking in front of people. So we were able to present our idea, and it was pretty, concise, and I think we were pretty established. So we ended up winning.
And did you enter that competition because you had plans to expand?
We always think about expanding, but it has to be like the right situation. People come to us all the time like, hey, there's a spot here, or you show up in here, or this restaurant is closing and you should take over. But it always has to be strategic, right? Like our restaurant not only supports like the 16 people that work here, but they support, my family, like my wife, my child, my brother, and his household of 5, my parents, things like that. So it's, it has to be the right move if we're going to spend money and expand. And we really, really played out the idea, and it was kind of the right move. It was almost like a full circle. Like when we first moved to this country, that was where we lived, with some of the lower income housing, and now that we're quote unquote successful, it's full circle to go back to that neighborhood and build something there again. So that's pretty much why.
And you guys source your meat from high quality meat place?
We do. Yeah, so we get it. We've been using Jeff None's beef from Lakeside Dairy, and I'm definitely not a butcher. So Darcy's Meat Market, Kyle over there, he grinds it for me, and there's a special mix of meat and fat that people kind of like are appalled by when they find out how we do it. But so we exclusively use Jeff None's beef from Lakeside Dairy, which is about 45 minutes away from our restaurant, maybe a little less, maybe a half hour, depending on how fast you're driving. And it's processed for us by Darcy's Meat Market, which is, the butcher here in St. Albert.
Yeah, because I noticed even your beers are local. Like you have a local beer selection.
Yeah, we like I said, we try to make like strategic partnerships. Everything's really strategic. Like we want to support the people that are in our community, and we want like the people who are in the community to feel that we are, community owned almost. Like so we have St. Albert beer, we have beer from Slave Lake because we have a bit of history there. We try to do everything within our area.
So because of that, it's a fast food place, but it's not really fast food. It's like a slow fast food because the ingredients are good.
Yeah.
Where are you thinking it's going to be hard to expand this out?
Like just like to scale the business up by how we do it. Yeah, that's a big issue, right? Like because everything is sourced in small batches, to scale to a bigger size would be difficult. But I mean, before we did this, I spoke to everyone who would be involved, from the baker to the butcher, to see if they could handle that kind of capacity, to see if, we're able to get deliveries to that part of Edmonton and things like that. So they were all on board. They're all thrilled about it. So, that's what happens when you have a business like that. You can't just make unilateral decisions. Even though my brother and I would like to, we have to make sure that, all the T's are crossed and all the I's are dotted to move forward with something like that. And we did. So, so the answer to that is yes and no. Scaling a business, like a boutique business like ours is a little difficult, but we have pretty good partners that were willing to work hard with us.
Do you ever think of being a chain?
Like it crosses our mind a lot because we are getting older, right? Like we're in our 40s and we're doing like young men's work. And we have young families, and they're going to get older, and that's a way to it's a tough question, because if we want to take care of our families long term, then that's the way we're going to have to go eventually. But will it kind of bastardize what we do? Absolutely. We'll have to wait to the point where we're willing to take a step back and we're willing to say, we're going to sell out more or less, right? Like the benefits of our family, benefits of like looking after our family are more important than what we do on a day-to-day basis. So we consider it. We talk about it a lot. It's a lot of work to do that too, and a lot of money. So maybe one day when it's our time to pass it on to our children, or our time to do something else.
My last question for you is, what are the most important lessons you've learned from starting a food business that you'd like to share?
Wow. There's a lot of important lessons, and it's not just food business, like I talk to people about it all the time, where our food people enjoy our food, but that's a really small component of what business is. One of my mentors said to me a long time ago that we're in the relationship business, and whether we're selling cars or we're selling food or whatever we're doing, it's about building relationships. And I've always like thought that way. Whether I'm building relationships with my staff, with my suppliers, with my guests, like it's all about building relationships. And I think that's, if you're gonna take a lesson from business, regardless if it's a food business or a retail business or any kind of business, is about building relationships. So that's the biggest lesson that we learn, and that's the biggest lesson that we preach to people who like to ask or ask for advice or want us to mentor them. That's the biggest thing that I teach is build your relationships, because that's how this thing works.
Now onto this episode's snack fact. We all know that burgers are very popular worldwide, but did you know that in the United States alone, 13 billion burgers are consumed a year? In other words, if all burgers eaten by Americans in a year were arranged in a straight line, it would circle our Earth 32 times or more. This snack fact was sourced from savortonight.com. And that's it for this episode of That's Food. Today's episode was produced by me, Maryam Shaheed. Special thanks to Tuli for speaking with me today. Our music is by Doug Hoyer, and you can find all our episodes on Apple Podcasts and Spotify, and on our website, that'sfood.transistor.fm. You can contact us at that'sfood@cgsr.com. We are also That's Food CGSR on Instagram and Facebook. That's Food is produced at CGSR in Edmonton on Treaty 6 territory. But is it food? That's food!